You know, when that plane finally touched down at Phoenix Sky Harbor, I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding for 11 months. 11 months of sand. Noise and orders barked across a hostile part of Afghanistan. All I saw in my mind was Willow Creek County, that dry, red Arizona dirt, and the ranch my grandpa built. That land, it wasn't just a house to me, it was a piece of us. 3 generations carved into the desert. I drove west that evening, sun bleeding over the mountains. Every mile marker was a memory. The air tasted different, cleaner, less dusty, and I finally hit the familiar stretch of road that led right up to the property line. And that's when it hit me, the cold stop. The kind of stop that sends a shudder right up your spine, even after everything you've seen overseas. There was a faded blue minivan parked right where my old Ford usually sat. A couple of cheap plastic bicycles were leaned against the fence post. And through the living room window, through the window of the house I grew up in, I saw these bright flowered curtains I'd never seen before, and a chaos of children's toys scattered everywhere. For a minute I thought I was hallucinating, thought the jet lag had finally cracked me, that I'd pulled up to the wrong place. But I knew every cracked stone, every uneven post. This was it. My home. I killed the engine, the truck ticking softly in the silence, and stepped out, boots crunching on the gravel. I was still in uniform, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, the whole package. The front door opened and this woman appeared, holding a toddler on her hip, looking utterly terrified. Like I was a ghost. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice tight. I straightened my posture, trying to keep the Afghanistan out of my voice. "This is my house. Who are you?" Her grip on the kid tightened. "Sir, I think you're mistaken. We bought this house 6 months ago. From the board, the Willow Creek Estates board." The words hit me like a physical blow. My stomach just bottomed out. I had paid every single bill before I left. My mortgage was current, the property taxes were cleared. I had meticulously handled every piece of paperwork, precisely so this couldn't happen while I was deployed. I stood there, watching her rock her kid in my doorway. "I am not mistaken," I said, my voice quiet now, dangerously low. "My name is Marcus Jenkins. This property has been in my family for generations. I didn't sell it, and I sure as hell didn't authorize anyone else to." She just shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, we have the paperwork, we paid cash. If you have a problem, you need to take it up with Eleanor Thorne and the board. That's all I can tell you." I turned, walked back to my truck. I'd stared down armed men in hostile villages, but nothing prepared me for the quiet, bureaucratic theft of my home. I knew Eleanor Thorne. She'd been president of the Willow Creek Board for years. She was known for her silver hair, her iron grip, and her endless stream of nitpicky fines. My grandpa used to joke that she treated the whole county like her personal kingdom, and now it seemed she'd taken the throne right off my land. I drove straight to the office of my old friend, Javier Ramos, Javi, a deputy down at the county sheriff's office. "Mac." "You're back." Javi's voice was pure shock and happiness. "I'm back," I told him, slumping in a chair, "and apparently I'm also homeless." I explained it all. The deployment, the prepaid bills, the new family, Eleanor. Javi just sat there, tapping a pen on his desk. "Eleanor Thorne," he muttered. "Look, Mac, I've checked the county records. There's a legitimate-looking transfer on the property, signed off by the board, filed as a lien foreclosure." "A lien on what?" I asked, leaning forward, my adrenaline starting to spike. "Unpaid dues and repeated violations." "But here's the kicker," Javi said, pushing a copy of the filing toward me. "The amounts don't add up. They're inflated, and your payments, the county has the record. You were current. They pushed this through without your signature. They stole it. Plain and simple." I slammed my fist on his desk, the sound echoing in the small office. "If they did this to you, Mac," Javi said, looking me dead in the eye, "you aren't the first. We've had whispers about Eleanor's board for years, but nobody ever fought back. They just settled or walked away." "Not this time," I said, thinking of the oak tree my grandpa taught me to climb, the barn that still smelled like hay. "They picked the wrong guy to steal from." Javi gave me the best advice. "You're covered under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. Go through the Army. You push this the right way. You won't just get your ranch back, you'll burn their whole kingdom down." The next day, I didn't waste any time changing out of my uniform. I walked right into the JAG office at Fort Huachuca. That's where I met Captain Olivia Chen. Sharp eyes, sharp suit, zero nonsense. She reviewed my file. Good record, Sergeant Jenkins. That helps. This is textbook SSCRA violation. They count on service members being too busy or too tired to fight back, she said. But since you're here, and you have documentation, we have the advantage. Trouble isn't enough, Captain, I told her. They took my legacy. I want them held accountable. And that's when Act 2 began. Because Eleanor wasn't just after me. She was running a racket. A few days later, Javi called me. The floodgates are open, Mac. 6 new names. Folks who say Eleanor's board pushed them out over fabricated debt. Same story every time. Fees piling up out of nowhere, then suddenly the house is gone. The first family I met was the Garcias. Mr. Garcia, a mechanic, looked like the life had been sucked out of him. They claimed $10,000 in dues, he muttered, shaking his head. 10 grand. I never missed a payment in 20 years. But they hit me with late fees, interest penalties, violation fines for my lawn. It snowballed. One day a notice. 2 months later, a new family is moving in. The Petersons' retired teachers told me the same thing. They were cited for lawn maintenance issues they never had, and repairs they never requested. They were too overwhelmed, too confused to fight the legal jargon in court. It wasn't you, I told them. My voice heavy with a new kind of resolve. It's them. They built a machine that chews through people's lives. But we're going to throw a wrench in those gears. Eleanor, of course, was fighting back. She was not the kind to panic. She was the kind to plot. When she realized a soldier was leading a rebellion, she tried to flip the script. Whispers started online. Anonymous posts questioning my stability. A blog claiming I had a history of volatile behavior after deployment. Local gossip painted me as unhinged, aggressive, impossible to reason with. I stormed into Javi's office, my face burning. They're dragging my service through the mud, Javi. They're trying to paint me as the crazy vet. Javi pushed me back into a chair. Mac, listen to me. That's Eleanor's playbook. If she can't beat you with rules, she'll beat you with rumors. The worst thing you can do right now is react. Don't take the bait, stay calm. Let Captain Chen handle the legal part. That night, Captain Chen called me, confirming the rumors. Stay focused, Sergeant. We are filing for discovery next week. That means we get their internal records. If Eleanor has been manipulating the books, we find the proof. That's how we win. Not through gossip. Proof, that's all I needed. The real break came 2 weeks later. Captain Chen was sitting across from me at a long oak table, her face absolutely focused on a laptop screen. We got the discovery, and I think they handed over more than they meant to. She spun the screen toward me. Spreadsheets, columns of payments and fines. Look at this, Mac, Garcia's file. Payment cleared the 10th. 5 days later, they added a late penalty. It happened over and over. They manufactured the debt. They created a paper trail to justify the foreclosures. I leaned back, taking a slow, deep breath. They cooked the books. Exactly, Chen said, a thin smile on her face. And if we can show a pattern across all these families, that's not just a civil dispute. That's federal fraud. But the final twist came from the inside. Later that evening, Javi called, sounding breathless. Mac, you won't believe this. Just got an anonymous call. One of the board members. A guy named Curtis. He's flipping. Curtis Doyle. I remembered him, a wiry guy, always looked uncomfortable at HOA meetings. He reached out through Javi, shaking like a leaf, terrified of being tied to Eleanor. Curtis sat across from me and Captain Chen the next day, sliding a thumb drive across the table. She told me to sign things I knew weren't right, he stammered. Late fees, inflated penalties, liens. It was all orchestrated. She told us to target homeowners who were vulnerable. People deployed, elderly couples, families behind on medical bills. She said they were easy to push. The words hung in the air, easy to push. That's how she saw us. That's how she saw my grandpa's legacy. I'm sorry, Curtis whispered, ashamed. I thought it was just business. But it's not. It's theft. Captain Chen pocketed the drive, her expression grim. Mr. Doyle, if you testify, this case just became a federal matter. As word spread that a board member had flipped, Eleanor's kingdom started to visibly shake. She tried to maintain control at the next HOA meeting, slamming her gavel and demanding order. But the people weren't bowing anymore. They were shouting, demanding transparency, demanding to know where their money went. For the first time, Eleanor Thorne's icy composure actually cracked, but she wasn't done. She still had powerful contacts, lawyers, and deep pockets. She was preparing to fight to the last dollar, but she didn't realize the size of the force she had invited into her little desert county. The climax, when it finally hit, wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a steady, terrifying escalation. Federal investigators, sharp agents from the Department of Justice rolled into Willow Creek County. They weren't looking at a neighborhood dispute. They were combing through years of bank accounts, records, and property transfers that spanned multiple counties. Javi stood with me outside the county courthouse one morning, watching the unmarked black SUVs pull up. Never thought I'd see the day, Mac. The feds in Willow Creek digging through HOA books. She brought this on herself. The investigators told me they had identified at least 12 families who lost property under suspicious circumstances. This isn't just HOA abuse, Sergeant Jenkins, one agent told me. It's fraud, conspiracy, maybe even racketeering. They resold some of these homes to developers at below-market prices and flipped them for profit. I felt this strange mix of sickness and vindication. Sickness because of the sheer number of lives ruined. Vindication because the truth was finally undeniably surfacing. Captain Chen called me that week. The investigators want you to testify in Phoenix, Mac. Your case is becoming the centerpiece of a broader inquiry into HOA abuse. They think it could set a national precedent. Washington, a national precedent. I thought about the Petersons crammed into their tiny rental apartment. I thought about the Garcias, still working extra shifts at the garage because they couldn't get back on their feet. I hadn't signed up to be a symbol, but I couldn't walk away from what that meant to them. The courthouse in Phoenix was packed the day of the final hearing. News vans lined the street. Veterans groups were outside, waving flags in support. Eleanor arrived in a tinted sedan, face hidden behind massive sunglasses, but the low, angry hum of the crowd followed her all the way through the doors. Inside, Captain Chen presented the federal findings. Fraudulent ledgers, forged penalties, coordinated sales, all backed up by Curtis Doyle's testimony. The judge, stern and efficient, listened intently, his expression hardening with every passing page. When Eleanor Thorne took the stand, she tried to maintain that signature icy control. But under cross-examination, her voice wavered. The emails were undeniable. The memos were too clear. Her empire was collapsing right in front of everyone, and for the first time, you could see the fear in her eyes. It wasn't about humiliating her, though. It was about justice. And then the judge delivered the ruling. The courtroom was absolutely silent. This court, the judge began, his voice steady, has reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The financial records, the testimony of homeowners, and the internal communications provided by a member of the HOA board make one fact clear. The foreclosures carried out under the direction of Ms. Eleanor Thorne and the Willow Creek Estates Board were fraudulent, predatory, and illegal. A gasp swept through the room. Eleanor didn't move. The court hereby nullifies the sales of all properties tied to these fraudulent actions. Titles will be restored to the original owners. Furthermore, Ms. Thorne and complicit members of the board are referred to federal prosecutors for charges of fraud, conspiracy, and abuse of power. The gavel struck once. Case adjourned. The room erupted. Cheers, tears, reporters lunging forward. I just sat there, my chest tight, staring at the judge's bench. My ranch, Grandpa's land, was ours again. I finally stood up, my sister Tasha gripping my arm, her eyes shining. Outside, the cameras were blinding. I paused, looking out at the crowds of neighbors, veterans, and the families who'd stood by me. I'm not here to celebrate me, I said, my voice steady, carrying over the noise. I'm here to celebrate justice. This wasn't about one ranch. It was about every family who was told they didn't matter. Today proves they do. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor was charged. The families got their homes back. The board's scheme was shattered. I spent those days back on the ranch, clearing brush, mending the fences. I walked the land, feeling that solid Arizona dirt beneath my feet, and I felt a peace I hadn't felt since before deployment. One evening, I was sitting out on the porch swing my grandpa built. Tasha came out with a mug of iced tea. "You know, you became more than just a soldier, Mac," she said softly. "You became a voice for people who never had one." I looked out over the property. I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted to come home. But sometimes coming home means fighting for more than just yourself. It means fighting for the principle of the thing. It means knowing that silence lets injustice grow, but one voice backed by the truth can tear it all down. And that's the thing that changed me. The headlines fade, the camera crews leave, but the lesson stays sharp. So weeks later, when another veteran reached out to me on social media, saying his HOA was threatening foreclosure while he was deployed, I didn't hesitate. I picked up the phone. I was ready to stand beside him. Because this fight wasn't just about one ranch in Willow Creek. It was about making sure no soldier, no family, no neighbor ever came home to find their life stolen again. And as I leaned back on that old porch swing, I finally knew my true purpose. Hey, what did you think of Mac's fight? This story hits on so many hot-button issues: the power of HOAs, the struggle of veterans, and the theft of generational wealth. Was the judge's ruling enough, or should Eleanor Thorne and her board face even tougher consequences? Would you have fought back, or would you have walked away like the first few families did? Let me know your take in the comments below. Drop a like if you think Mac did the right thing, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people fighting back against injustice. We read every comment, so let us know. What's the craziest HOA story you've ever heard?